We make brand the catalyst for the journey between early adoption and scale. But even great strategies and ideas won't achieve much unless they're transmitted throughout a business with energy. You need light and heat to ignite your purpose, people, and culture. Inspire creativity in your marketing, data, and communications, and increase momentum, resilience, and growth. Are you ready for brand?
Hello.
Hi. Morning.
Hello, everybody, and we are live. Welcome to Make 2022 your leap year. This event this morning is all about helping you discover some of the practical steps you can take this very month to get your business to the next level in 2022. I'm Beth Pope, and I am joined by my fellow and esteemed co-hosts and Firehouse founders, Nick Bartram, Sarah Platt, and Ian Bates. Now, in case you haven't come across Firehouse before, we are a brand consultancy that specialises in helping leadership teams and founders who are looking to make the next move from their early adopter audience to that vital next cohort of customers. But to be honest, whatever your size of business, whether you're a one-person company or you're part of a team of hundreds, today's event is really focused on what it takes to evolve your brand and grow. And we hope everyone watching will take something useful out of that. It's fair to say, isn't it, that building a business and growing a brand is definitely a long-term journey. And sometimes, to be honest, that journey can feel a little bit of a Herculean effort, can't it? A bit of a marathon. But it is really helpful to remember that any journey is made up of many, many steps. And that's why we wanted to focus today's event specifically on some of those smaller steps that you can take over the next couple of weeks that will put you in a better position for wherever you're aiming to go this coming year. But before we head on into the 4 insights and actions we're going to be sharing with you today, I think we should just take a moment to, I guess, set the scene and acknowledge where a lot of businesses are at right now. So feel free to reflect on this yourself while you're listening to us, or share any thoughts as we're talking. But my question for my co-hosts this morning is, I guess, the world has been through an incredible amount of change, unlike any other over the past couple of years. So what does it feel like to be part of an ambitious business at the start of 2022? And I'm going to go to Ian for that first. Ian.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Well, clearly, from a business point of view, COVID has really been the headline narrative for the last couple of years. But I think the longer term narrative is actually climate change. So if you put what's happened with COVID, what is continuing to happen with climate change and those challenges together, I think that idea of ambitious businesses, ambitious business leaders and staff, my observation would be that everybody, or certainly more people now, are seeking fulfillment and alignment of their personal purpose and values with what they are doing at work.
I think that's undoubtedly true. We've definitely seen that and felt that ourselves to some degree, haven't we, over the last at least 12 months. Mm-hmm. Sarah?
So I think change is the constant, isn't it? And I think as founders, business leaders, we all know we need to embrace change. But I think the pandemic has brought change that none of us expected, in a speed and time scale none of us expected. But I think it just highlights the fact that as business founders and leaders, we need to plan agility and flexibility into the future. And you hear during the pandemic businesses saying, well, we've been forced to accelerate our plans to go digital, or we've been forced to accelerate our plans to provide hybrid working. Well, don't be forced into anything. As you're planning, as you're setting your business goals, build that agility and flexibility in. You have that magic power as founders and leaders to plan that the future is going to be one of change and build that agility and flexibility in.
For sure, absolutely. Right, Nick, I'm coming to you next.
So mine's a slightly more personal reflection, which is that it's bloody terrifying, I think. But what I have to keep doing, and what I see around me is, business thrives on solving people's problems, right? And there's been a lot of people getting a lot of new problems in the last 24 months or so. So it's a huge opportunity, but, you got to stay steady and keep going at it, right?
I think that's absolutely true. I guess my reflection is, I think a lot of us, or a lot of businesses out there, are wondering, whether it's the right time to light the fuse, I guess. If you're an ambitious business, and has that fuse, while it's been sitting there, got a little bit damp? And does it still have the energy that's kind of needed if you do set fire to it to kind of make the proper sparks happen? And if you do set off the fuse, are you setting it off prematurely? Are we heading into another period of uncertainty and whatever's next after Omicron? And I think that's a real tension, isn't it, between the ambition you have and then the kind of apprehension you have about putting energy into something which might not be where it needs to be.
There's an advertising line in that, right? Light your damp fuse. Done. The campaign's written itself.
Let's go with that. Right. Yeah. We are going to be heading on now into our 4 insights and tips for today. And if you're watching, if you hear or see anything that you like even, then we'd love for you to like it so that we know and the world can know that you've heard something that you value. So like away, people, whenever you like. So without further ado, we are looking today at the things we can focus on, maybe even just over the next few weeks, that are going to set the foundations for growth. And we are heading to Mr. Nick Bartram first. Nick, over to you.
Yes, thank you. So my point is around getting, rather than taking, an outsider perspective on your business. And it's something you can definitely do in January this year.
My tip for something you can do this month to get your brand to scale in 2022 is to get an outside perspective. We've seen this with a couple of our clients recently, where they've had their head stuck in the detail and they're very, very focused on the consumer problem they're fixing, which is really important, and they're very focused on their technical response to that. But never do they take a step back and understand, where do I fit in the mind of my customers or my potential customers? And to be honest, what do they think about me? Because often that comes as a bit of a shock. Now, the proper way to do this is to pay someone who's skilled at research to go out and talk to large quantities of them and prepare a report and, et cetera, et cetera. But really, you can undertake this month very simply and very effectively. Gather together a group of your customers, and if possible, people that look just like your customers, are in the same category and have probably heard of you, but aren't buying you yet. And try and spend some time with each of them as individually as possible. When you're talking to them, don't spend time, professing your seniority. As much as possible, try and distance yourself from the business you're representing. And just merely talk to them about the brand. Don't get stuck into the detail. Ask them first, what are the features that you remember about our brand? What's the kind of list of things we do that you can think of? Secondly, then, what are the benefits from working with us? How does it make you better by working with our brand? So pretty simple standard stuff. The third, though, is more important, but it feels less important. And that is, what makes us distinctive? And that could be something really minor. It might just be the way we look, or the fact that we always talk in a certain way on the phone, or a particular image or something. But what's the thing that sticks out in people's minds when they think of you? Because that's a really valuable brand asset to hold on to. And then finally, the fourth thing is around persuasion. Turn the tables and ask them, if they had 30 seconds to sell your business or your product, what would they say? And pay very close attention to the things that come out first on the list, because those are the things which are most important to them. Then obviously, once you've got this information, take it back to base, understand it in the context of your communications, your brand plan, your marketing plan. But always understand that what's most important to you might not be what's most important to your customers and your customers in the future.
We're back.
We are back. Thank you, Nick. And by the way, I am thrilled finally, after 2 years of video calling you, to finally see what's on the wall in front of your desk. That brings me much joy. Thank you for that. I was quite surprised listening to that, I'll be honest, because you talk to me a lot of the time about the importance of digging into the detail. And I know you love nothing more than finding more detail to get stuck into. But I guess while that is undoubtedly important and true, it's really vital, isn't it, to pull back from that and not miss the blindingly obvious. And I know David C. Baker, the author on positioning, who we love a lot at Firehouse, he uses the analogy, doesn't he, that it's really hard to see the label from the inside of the bottle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the point is, it's the label that you're trying to get here, because everyone tends to be quite good at understanding their consumer problem and their solution to it. But it's that kind of, what's the wrapper? What does everyone else see around that people tend to not have a great handle on?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Right. So, folks, for our next tip, we are heading into the world of finance, which I always think is a little bit like visiting the dentist. You know, it's absolutely essential. It's for our own good. And the experience can be made all the more pleasant and bearable by the person who's treating you being thoroughly lovely. So, Sarah, this is your cue.
Thank you, Beth. I mean, as Nick said, getting an outsider's perspective is really important for growth, but knowing how you're going to fund that growth is equally important. So on to our next tip. When did you last look at your cash flow forecast? And I mean really look at your cash flow forecast. I know what you're thinking. We're here today to talk about how you take your brand to the next level. So why are we talking about cash flow? To take your brand to the next level, you need to plan what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to fund it. Having a clear business plan with clear business goals, which include how you develop your brand, will allow you to cost out your plan and set a budget. Setting a budget and flowing that budget into a cash flow forecast allows you to check affordability and identify any cash flow challenges. If you can't afford the marketing investment you need to achieve your business goals, identify this early. Consider your options. A short-term business loan or capital injection, or a funding round or raise of some description may be required. Forecast carefully how much cash you are going to need and when, and ensure you know how long you're likely to have before your current cash runs out, which is a likely outcome if you're scaling. In other words, know your cash runway. Start talking to your bank or potential lenders or investors much earlier than you think you will need to. It's surprising how long it takes to secure funding and how much of your time it will take. Having a clear business plan and clear business goals with fully costed business development, recruitment, staff costs, overheads and marketing spend puts you in a much stronger position to have conversations with lenders or investors. If you haven't already, put together a simple cash flow forecast in Excel or Google Sheets, or ask an accountant to do it for you. Update it and review it regularly, reflecting any known changes. If you're thinking, I do all of this already, then great. But you'd be surprised at how many business owners don't. Let's face it, you're spinning a lot of plates. Cash flow forecasting may not be one of your strengths or one of your most urgent priorities. 21.5% of startups fail in their first year, 30% in their second year, and 90% overall. Many of them fail not because the business idea wasn't a good one, or because the founders weren't capable or didn't work hard enough. A significant proportion fail due to cash flow issues that weren't identified early enough to allow the founders to plan or take action. In summary, know your cash burn, know your cash runway. Have a clear plan for how you are going to fund your business plan and goals. Know if and when you are going to need to start talking to lenders or investors, and put yourself firmly in control of your cash flow to help you achieve your business goals.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah. There's something that's definitely stuck in my mind from all of that, and that is that. There is
I mentioned it once or twice.
there is no doubt about how important that is. But the point can never be made too often, can it? Because
No.
I think what we found as Firehouse and working closely with business leaders over now 2.5 years is that finance and cash flow are rarely seen as part of the brand building process. Why do you think leaders haven't made that sort of link between what they're trying to achieve with the growth of the business and building that through the brand and the funding of it?
It's a good question, Ian, and it's difficult to say precisely, but I think we're all guilty of unintentionally thinking in siloed ways at times. We probably think about our brand separately from when we think about our financial position, but they're actually much more inextricably linked than any of us would like to think. And that's the key point, isn't it? Making sure that we're not just thinking in silos, but we're thinking in a very joined up way when we're planning our business growth.
Fantastic. Well, listen, time is moving on, so I think we should take a look at our third tip for the day. And Ian, we're with you, aren't we?
You are indeed. The film, I hope, is self-explanatory, but it's based on my very strong feeling that ultimately, what is it that customers see, hear, and feel?
Let me ask you a question. What brand communication or advertising do you remember from yesterday? Interesting, eh? Research from a few years ago says that up to 81% of brands could disappear and European consumers wouldn't care. Does that make you feel like giving up? No. I think what it does is shows just how important it is to build a real brand. What we've learned is that too many businesses are trying to compete and scale by communicating product or service features. It's not capturing the imagination of their audience. Put simply, they've still not made the leap to becoming a true brand. Consequently, they're missing out on the power of a brand idea. So how do you get there? Well, first of all, you establish your purpose, why you exist. That's internally focused. Secondly, you establish your positioning, where you fit in the mind of your customer. That's externally focused. And then you bring them together and unite them in a brand idea. So what is a brand idea? It's an articulation of what your business stands for. It's like planting a flag to mark out your territory. And it will become the burning platform for your communications and your behaviour, both internally and externally. It will capture the imagination of your customers and your staff. It will speak to their heart as well as their head. It will drive consistency in your communications, help decision making, particularly around look and feel and tone of voice, and help you to be distinct if you can't be entirely different, and make you memorable. Creating a brand idea is not something that you will complete in a week. So what can you do now to make progress? I recommend that you review as much of your marketing output from last year as possible. and ask yourself 2 questions. First, how much of this work is actually memorable? And secondly, does it communicate a brand that customers should care about? If the answer to either of those is no, then I suggest you look at your purpose and positioning and then move on to creating a brand idea. It's going to be beneficial in the long run because it will save you time and money and ultimately be critical to your ability to scale.
Nice work, Ian. I can see you got your exercise in on that one. Decided to get.
I walked miles doing that.
You mentioned like reviewing your content and assets and things like that, but deciding whether or not they were memorable. So how do we non-creative directors stand a chance of deciding whether something we've done is memorable or not?
Well, creative directors are not always the best arbiter of what is memorable for somebody else. Our job is generally to find the most interesting, useful or entertaining way to project it. So I think most business leaders can be brutal with themselves when they are reviewing work as to whether they think it's memorable. But of course, the obvious thing to do is bring in some customers. Bring in some customers, actually, like you said, bring in some people that look like your customers, that have never bought your product or your service, and ask them, show them some stuff, get what it means to them out of it. And you may well find that you're bang on course and everything's great, or you've got a major piece of work to do to stand for something.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Ian. That brings us round to our 4th and final tip for today, which is coming from me. And as you'll see in my video, it doubles up as my audition to be the next Monty Don. So hopefully you will enjoy that. But you might feel you understand your customer needs. You may feel you've got the budget sorted and the creative in place to act on that. But what about the people who are really going to make that fly for you, your team? Understanding where they are at is absolutely critical to growth. So let's wander out into my garden and take a look.
I've come out into my garden on this cold but beautiful January day because, quite frankly, where else could be better to talk about the shoots for growth for the coming year? So my question for you is this: even if you feel your brand is in great shape to take you to the next level in the next 12 months, does your team feel ready, fired up and equipped to make that leap with you? It's all too easy as a leadership team, if you spent weeks and months honing your brand vision, shaping your brand strategy, articulating your brand idea, to feel that the glow of that brightly burning sun is all you need for growth. But is that warmth and light reaching everywhere in the business that it needs to? Are the soil conditions right? Have you provided the right nourishment for all of the energy here to reach its full potential? So what can you practically do over the next week or so to help with that? Well, my task for you is to get a really clear picture of where your team are on that journey. That's about suspending judgment, listening carefully, questioning supportively, and being open to what you might hear. There are 4 areas of questioning which I think would be really valuable for you to focus on. Firstly, start by getting a really clear picture of your team's current awareness and understanding of where the brand is at. Potentially ask them to play back to you what they see as being the vision and the ambition, the strategy or the idea, or how they might explain that to a family, friend or relative. Once you've done that, then secondly, try and establish their enthusiasm and excitement, what interests them about the year ahead. What potential do they see in the brand? What are they looking forward to playing a part in? Once you know that, then it's really important, thirdly, to go on and gauge any worries or concerns they may have about that. Are there aspects of the strategy or idea or vision that they don't feel as confident or clear about yet? Do they really understand how it impacts that area of the business that they're responsible for? Are there hurdles they are aware of that you may be unaware of that could act as a stumbling block? Once you know that, then the fourth area of questioning is to ask about what help or support would be welcome to address any of those areas of uncertainty. Are there any practical impediments holding people back from doing their best? Contrary to what we often hear, your job is not to bring people on that brand journey with you. It's to create the light, space and air for people to breathe, to be able to pick up that mantle for themselves and run with it. That's the real key to building a business stronger and faster.
Thank you, Beth, for that lovely journey into your garden.
You're welcome.
It's so important, isn't it, to make sure that the team are, you're not bringing the team along on the journey, as you say, but the team are an integral part of that journey, and that the energy of the leadership team or founders is absolutely shared with the team, and the team feel just as energized as the leadership team do. And I think we've all been there before when we've not felt that, and it feels a bit us and them, and that is a shame, frankly, because it's so important that your biggest asset, your people, embrace everything that the leadership team are putting together for the business, and that they're an integral part of it, as I say, and that they feel that energy and they're able to bring their own energy to it as well.
Absolutely, because you've hired them because they're brilliant and talented people.
Absolutely.
And it's how you make the most of that. I think it's understandable and maybe forgivable that you find yourself in that position, because as a leadership team, you're so eager to get going. Mm-hmm. You're so eager to light that fuse. And it's easy to forget that you've the journey you yourself have been on to get to that point. Not everyone has necessarily been there with you for all of that. And so they're not necessarily feeling the same way, but you are holding yourself back if you don't just pause and take a moment to make sure that everyone is in the same place and feels that potential and feels inspired and feels motivated, for sure. Well, that brings us to the end of our 4 tips for this morning, for the things you can do in January to ready yourself and your business for growth. We hope the past 30 minutes or so have given you a little food for thought. If you'd like to know more about us at Firehouse, please feel free, obviously, to visit our company LinkedIn page or our website, which is firehouse.co.uk, where you can also find all of our contact details. Remember to like if you liked what you've seen, or drop us a line and let us know what's on your mind and you might like us to cover in a future version of what's clearly going to be a phenomenally successful series of LinkedIn live events. For now, all that remains is for us to wish you a very happy rest of the day and, of course, a productive and successful 2022. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.